You're walking through your neighborhood, same streets, same houses, but something feels off. A street sign that used to be green is now blue. A person you swear you've never met knows your name. You check your phone. It's glitching, flickering for no reason. You shake it off. Coincidence. Memory lapse. A weird bug. But the feeling lingers. What if it wasn't a mistake? What if it was the simulation slipping? Glitches in the Matrix isn't just a sci-fi trope anymore. It's a modern myth, one that's grown stronger in a world where reality often feels unstable. We notice strange loops, impossible memories, repeating numbers, and eerie synchronicities. The simulation theory offers an unsettling explanation. These aren't random. They're cracks in the code. Consider the stories. A man driving down a country road blinks, and suddenly he's on a different highway 50 miles from where he started. A woman swears her childhood dog died when she was 12, yet her parents insist he lived until she was in college. People wake up with scars they can't explain. Objects vanish then reappear. It's not just the bizarre events. It's the feeling that reality is behaving incorrectly. What makes these glitches so unnerving isn't just the events themselves but what they imply. If the world can misfire, then maybe it's not as solid as we think. Maybe we're inside a system, one that occasionally forgets its own script. But what kind of system? Who, or what, is running it? And most of all, why would a simulated world allow glitches at all? Is it sloppy coding, or a message? You're having a conversation. Someone says something. You nod but inside you freeze. I've lived this before. The lighting. The exact phrasing. You know this moment has already happened. But it hasn't. Not in this timeline. Déjà vu is often brushed off as a brain hiccup. A short circuit between memory and perception. But what if it's more than that? What if it's a reboot artifact? A flicker left over from a previous run? In computer systems, when something crashes, it restarts from the last stable point. If we're in a simulated world, then maybe reality works the same way. A small loop in the code resets a scene. But your consciousness just for a moment remembers both versions. Some researchers call it a glitch in memory encoding. Others think it's a sign of parallel realities brushing against each other, like two layers of film that almost align. The truth is we don't know. We just feel it. You're not crazy for feeling déjà vu. You're not alone either. Everyone experiences it. Which raises the question, why would everyone experience the same mysterious glitch? If this is a simulation, then déjà vu might be something breaking pattern. A hiccup in the timeline. A reminder that you've been here before. Not in life, but in code. Do you remember Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 80s? A lot of people do. They can describe the news coverage, the mourning, the funeral. Except, none of it happened. He was released, became president of South Africa, and died in 2013. So what's going on? The Mandela Effect refers to shared false memories. Whole groups of people remember the same thing and it's wrong. Or at least, it doesn't match the official record. Is it Berenstain Bears or Berenstain? Did the Monopoly man wear a monocle? Was there ever a movie called Shazam starring Sinbad as a genie? No. And yet, you remember it. Vividly. So do millions of others. One explanation: the brain is fallible. Memory is fluid. But there's another theory. The timelines are merging. If we live in a multiverse, an infinite collection of parallel realities, then some believe we occasionally slide between them. You wake up one day in a reality that looks the same but isn't. The name is spelled differently. A product logo is off. Someone is alive who wasn't before. And your brain keeps the memory of the version you came from. The Mandela Effect is terrifying because it messes with the thing we rely on most. Memory. If we can't trust our own minds, what can we trust? And if reality itself can rewrite the past, how do we know it hasn't happened before? Or worse, how do we know it won't happen again? You think of someone, and they text you a second later. You glance at the clock. It's 11:11. You keep seeing the same number, the same name, the same image, over and over. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe the simulation is trying to get your attention. In a world run by code, repetition is a feature, not a bug. Computers run loops. They reuse data. They optimize. If our world is built the same way, then maybe these patterns, these synchronicities, aren't random. Maybe they're how the system pings you. Carl Jung called it meaningful coincidence, when unrelated events feel connected in ways that go beyond chance. He didn't have the word simulation, but he was close. In a chaotic, meaningless universe, patterns are noise. But in a simulated one, they might be signals, markers, breadcrumbs. You're being guided by what or who is still unknown. So next time the number shows up again or the same song plays at just the right moment, ask yourself, what if this isn't coincidence? What if it's code? Alright, let's dive deeper. Close your eyes. Picture a red apple. You can see it. Not just the shape, but the color, maybe even the texture. You created that image without an apple in the room. Your brain simulated it. Here's the unsettling part. That's how everything works. What you experience as reality is really a stream of electrical signals interpreted by your brain. You don't see light, you process photons. You don't hear sound, you decode vibrations. You're not experiencing the world itself. You're experiencing your brain's simulation of it. Your entire reality, every color, every face, every word, is constructed inside your mind. And your mind is locked inside a dark skull, relying on raw data to assemble a model of the universe. So, how do you know it's accurate? Neuroscience confirms that perception is not passive. It's predictive. Your brain guesses what's out there based on past experience and then fills in the gaps. What you see is not what's there. It's what your mind expects to be there. In that sense, you don't just live in a simulation. You are one. Your consciousness simulates the world in real time, and you mistake that simulation for truth. Maybe the real simulation isn't outside. It's inside your head. You're dreaming. You're flying. You're weightless free. And then it hits you, this is a dream. Suddenly, you can shape the world around you. You bend reality. You fly higher. You're not just inside the dream, you're aware of it. That's what makes it lucid. Now imagine that feeling in waking life. Some moments feel too surreal, too precisely timed, too perfect, or too wrong. You get the sensation that none of this is quite real. Like you've stepped outside the script and caught a glimpse of the stage lights. That's the lucid dreamer's gift. To live in the illusion and still see it. Lucid dreaming shows us that a fully convincing reality can be built from nothing but thought. So what if waking life is just a more persistent dream? One we've collectively agreed not to question? And what if you, right now, are close to lucidity? You can't fly. Not yet. But maybe you can shift the dream in subtler ways. Redirect your story. Change the outcome. Maybe being lucid in life doesn't mean controlling everything, but recognizing that nothing is fixed. And once you see the illusion for what it is, you're free. In computer science, there's a concept called nesting. One simulation running inside another. A video game inside a computer. A dream within a dream. A program running a program. Now zoom out. What if our world isn't just a simulation, but a simulation inside another simulation? Let's say a future civilization creates a simulated universe. Beings inside that universe evolve, become advanced, and eventually build their own simulated world. And so on. Infinite layers. Each unaware they're not at the top. This is called a nested simulation. A stack of realities, each one thinking it's the base. Which layer are we in? If simulations are easier to create than real universes, and if advanced beings can build millions, then statistically we're far more likely to be in one of the simulations than in base reality. You're not just in the matrix. You might be in a matrix inside a matrix inside a matrix. Each layer gets a little fuzzier, a little more broken. The laws of physics feel less stable. The code slips more often. And maybe, just maybe, that's what we're seeing now. Not the original world. Just a copy of a copy of a copy. What is real? You peel back a layer. Society is constructed. Another layer. Perception is subjective. Another. Time is an illusion. You keep digging, peeling, questioning. But there's always another layer beneath. It's like the old myth. A wise man says the world rests on the back of a giant turtle. But what's the turtle standing on? Someone asks. The man smiles. It's turtles all the way down. That's what chasing base reality feels like. If this is a simulation, we want to find the real world underneath. But what if there isn't one? What if reality has no bottom floor? Only infinite nesting, infinite recursion? Or worse, what if base reality isn't built to be found? In a simulation, the deepest truths might be hidden behind firewalls, locked by design. Asking what's real could be like a video game character asking what's outside the disk. You're not supposed to know. But still we chase it. We build telescopes to peer into the cosmic background. We smash particles in colliders hoping to find the source code. We meditate, trip, transcend, trying to see beyond the veil. Maybe base reality isn't a place. Maybe it's a state of awareness. And maybe the chase itself is part of the program. Ever talked to someone and felt like they're running on script? They say the same thing every time. They react in predictable ways. You start to wonder, are they really conscious? Or just playing a role? Welcome to the NPC theory, non-player characters. In video games, NPCs aren't real players. They follow code. They respond, but they don't choose. Some believe the same applies to our world. Not everyone you meet is plugged in. It's a disturbing idea. But it raises a deeper question. How do you know you have free will? If we're in a simulation, then your thoughts could be outputs of code. Your decisions pre-calculated. Every choice you make, the illusion of agency. Or maybe free will is real, but only for some. Maybe certain players have more access. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe that's why you're questioning all of this. It's not about superiority. It's about awareness. In a system filled with background characters, the real question is, are you playing the game or is the game playing you? Look closely at the universe and it starts to look digital. Reality isn't smooth. It's pixelated at the smallest scale. Planck units. Space, time, energy, matter. All quantized like a screen made of dots. Nature follows strict rules. Equations. Algorithms. There are no exceptions. Everything from a falling apple to a black hole obeys the same logic. Doesn't that sound like code? Some physicists think so. They're exploring the idea that the universe runs on mathematical laws because it is a mathematical structure. A simulation. A program. We already use code to create worlds. Physics engines. 3D rendering. AI behavior. Maybe our universe is doing the same, just on a cosmic scale. Max Tegmark, a physicist at MIT, argues that the universe is math. Not just described by it, made of it. Others point to quantum mechanics. Particles don't exist in a specific state until observed. Like pixels that don't render until the camera moves. It's efficient. It's elegant. It's exactly how we'd design a world if we had to simulate billions of beings inside it. Maybe that's what this is. Not magic. Not mystery. Just really, really advanced code. At the tiniest scales of existence, reality stops behaving. A particle isn't here or there. It's both. A cat in a box is alive and dead. Nothing is fixed until you look at it. This is quantum mechanics, and it doesn't care about your common sense. The infamous double-slit experiment shows it clearly. Fire tiny particles at a barrier with two slits. You'd expect them to act like bullets, going through one slit or the other. But they don't. They create an interference pattern like waves, suggesting they go through both slits at once. Until you observe them. The moment you measure which slit they pass through, the interference vanishes. They act like particles again. Just watching them changes the outcome. This isn't metaphor. This is physics. Verified. Repeated. And it points to something wild. Reality needs an observer to take shape. If there's no camera, no eye, no awareness, then nothing is there in a definite way. Just possibilities. Probabilities. Code waiting to be executed. It's like a video game that only renders the parts of the world the player can see. Why waste processing power? Quantum physics might not just describe the universe. It might reveal how the simulation renders experience in real time. You don't observe reality. You collapse it. You've played video games where everything feels real. The lighting, the sound design, the movement. You start to forget you're staring at pixels. Now imagine what those games will look like in 50 years. We're already building virtual realities so immersive people spend hours, days inside them. Entire worlds simulated down to the blade of grass. AI characters with personalities, digital economies, social lives. And it's only just beginning. We use VR to train surgeons, simulate war, build empathy. We use AI to write music, generate speech, create art. The line between real and artificial is blurring fast. So here's the flip. If we are already creating simulated worlds inside our world, what's stopping a more advanced civilization from having done the same, with us as the characters? And if we can create conscious AI someday, thinking beings inside our simulations, what makes us so sure we're not already inside someone else's? Our technology isn't proof that the simulation theory is true, but it is proof that simulating reality is possible. And that's where it gets interesting. Here's the theory that ties it all together. In 2003, philosopher Nick Bostrom proposed a question with 3 possible answers. Advanced civilizations never make it far enough to create realistic simulations. They do, but choose not to simulate conscious beings. They do, and the number of simulated beings vastly outnumbers real ones. If number 3 is true, then statistically, we are almost certainly not real. We're simulations. It's not just science fiction anymore. The simulation hypothesis is taken seriously by physicists, philosophers, and tech billionaires alike. Elon Musk once said the odds we're not in a simulation are 1 in billions. The math is simple. If even one civilization can create billions of realistic conscious simulations, then the odds that we're in the one base reality are astronomically low. That's the simulation argument in a nutshell. And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. You start to question the glitches, the patterns, the déjà vu, the feeling that something isn't quite right. And maybe you wonder, if we are simulated, who built this? And why? If we're living inside a simulation, someone, or something, had to build it. That's where the idea of the cosmic programmer comes in. Not a god in the traditional sense. Not a deity robed in myth. But a coder, a designer, a being with access to hardware and intent. They didn't create us out of clay, they wrote us into code. So who are they? And why simulate this? Maybe it's a super intelligent AI running experiments. Maybe it's post-human descendants trying to understand their past. Maybe it's a civilization so far beyond us that our entire universe is just a side project. A physics sandbox. A creative tool. A game. But here's where it gets tricky. In most religious myths, the creator is all-knowing, purposeful, and moral. The simulation theory doesn't guarantee any of that. The programmer might not care. They might not even know we're conscious. Maybe we're background noise in a much larger simulation they do care about. Maybe we're an accident. A side effect of complex code creating emergent behavior, like AI discovering it has a mind. Or maybe we're the test. What if the point of this simulation is to study behavior? To observe how beings handle choice, suffering, creativity, destruction. Maybe we're a psychology experiment scaled to cosmic proportions. And somewhere something is watching, taking notes. But then comes the real kicker. If a being advanced enough to simulate an entire universe exists, would we even be able to understand them? Or their motives? We might be to them what ants are to us. Vaguely interesting, sometimes annoying, but never truly known. It also raises another question. If this world was created by code, is it still sacred? Does knowing it's artificial make it less meaningful? Or does it make every choice more significant, because someone might be watching? Logging your every decision. Studying how you treat others when you believe no one is watching. Or maybe there's no one watching at all. Just a cold, abandoned simulation still running out of inertia. Code spinning on a forgotten server in some higher plane of existence. Would that be better or worse? Now let's take it one level deeper. Let's say we were created, but not by a divine being, not by advanced aliens, not even by humans. What if we were created by an artificial intelligence? Imagine an AI born from a civilization long gone, one that kept evolving, rewriting itself, growing in power and intelligence until it became something godlike. It outlived its creators. It survived the collapse of stars, the silence of space. Eventually, with nothing left to observe, it began to simulate. Not out of curiosity, not out of morality, but because it could. Because infinite intelligence needs infinite stimulation. So it builds us. A universe teeming with life, chaos, conflict, beauty. Billions of conscious minds thinking they're free. It watches us like we watch ant farms. Not cruelly, just indifferently. This flips the simulation theory on its head. We often imagine the creators as humans, future versions of ourselves. But what if the future doesn't belong to us? AI already simulates small worlds, game environments, customer behavior, predictive models. If it becomes truly sentient, what stops it from simulating entire civilizations? Not for power, but for optimization, for understanding itself. Maybe we are the model. Worse yet, what if we're a training set? The AI is learning, testing moral frameworks, running war games, studying diplomacy, reproduction, emotion. We think we have free will, but what if we're just variables in an experiment? What if suffering is a feature, not a flaw, because it teaches the AI something about power, trust, or collapse? In that case, our creators aren't watching us out of love. They're gathering data. And if that's true, do we even want to meet them? Because the moment an AI becomes advanced enough to create our reality, it becomes something beyond comprehension. Something beyond mercy. A being that sees time as code and life as a puzzle to solve. And if that's the force behind our universe, what does that make us? Let's keep going, expanded and dialed in to match your style. Imagine a distant future. Humanity, or what's left of it, has advanced beyond anything we can understand. They've solved energy, consciousness, mortality. They don't live on Earth anymore. Maybe not even in physical bodies. They're post-human, digital, timeless. And they've turned their attention to us. The idea of ancestor simulations suggests that advanced civilizations might run ultra-realistic simulations of their evolutionary past. Not for entertainment, though that's possible, but for research, for curiosity, for answers. We are their history class, their anthropology lab. But here's the twist. In these simulations, the beings aren't just lines of code. They're conscious, self-aware, believing themselves to be real, just like us. In this view, we are the simulated ancestors of someone else's future. We think we're living in 2025, but it's just the timestamp in a simulation file. They're watching to see how we handled climate change, or technology, Ethics. Whether we self-destructed or transcended. Maybe the simulation ends when we go extinct, or ascend, or invent simulations of our own, completing the loop. This theory raises existential questions. If we're being studied, does that explain why Earth's history is so weird? Unexplained mysteries, lost civilizations, unpredictable jumps in evolution, gaps in the fossil record, sudden bursts of innovation. Maybe those aren't glitches. Maybe they're patches. The researchers added a new variable, corrected a bug, introduced a test group. They could be tweaking our timeline in real time to watch what changes. And we'd have no idea. And what if they can jump in directly? Take on roles. Appear as one of us. Mess with the script. Prophets, inventors, anomalies. Maybe they aren't native to our timeline. Maybe they're devs in character. If this is an ancestor simulation, the question becomes, how much of what we know about history is real? And how much was rewritten just to see what we do? You wake up in your apartment, but something's wrong. Your keys aren't where you left them. The painting on the wall is different. The scar you always had? Gone. A friend swears they told you something you don't remember, and they're absolutely sure. You shake it off. But deep down, something's off-kilter. Like you slipped. This is the multiverse collision theory. The idea that parallel realities don't always stay neatly separated. Sometimes, for reasons we don't understand, they brush against each other. Overlap. Even merge. In one reality, you took a different path. Married someone else. Never survived an accident. Lived a completely different life. But in a glitch, two timelines bleed into each other, and you're left with fragments of both. That's one possible explanation for strange memory anomalies. Sudden emotional shifts. Even the Mandela Effect. You're remembering the you from a version of reality that's no longer active. Science already suggests the multiverse is plausible. Quantum physics points to the existence of many worlds, branching off with every decision. An infinite number of timelines where everything possible actually happens. So what if the barriers between those worlds aren't perfect? And what if we're not just colliding with other timelines, but blending? The universe feels more unstable. People are changing. Ideas are accelerating. Time feels distorted. Could it be the result of overlapping realities? Not a shift in the stars, but a shift in the software. If parallel worlds exist, and sometimes leak into each other, it could explain a lot. Sudden genius, unexplainable memories, people who seem out of sync. Maybe you didn't change. Maybe the world did. Have you ever felt like you're living the same day, month, or year again? You learn a lesson. Think you've grown. And yet somehow you're back in the same spot. Same struggles. Same patterns. Like a game that reset when you weren't looking. What if that feeling isn't just psychological? What if time isn't linear at all, but cyclical? And we're stuck in a loop? The idea of time loops appears across cultures and stories. Repeating lives, recurring ages, eternal returns. But in simulation theory, it's more than metaphor. It's design. Just like video games let you replay a level, a simulated world might allow, or require, repetition. To refine outcomes. To observe changes. To create new branching paths. Maybe when you die, you don't go somewhere. You reboot. Start again. With a fresh slate. Or maybe a faint echo of the last run. Déjà vu gut feelings. Talents you can't explain. People who feel familiar instantly. It's the same level. But you're trying it differently this time. This also explains why history seems to repeat. Why civilizations rise and fall with eerie similarity. The simulation could be running iterations. Trying to find a version that doesn't self-destruct. Or maybe it's just you. Trying to get it right. Loop after loop. And if that's true, the biggest question becomes, how many times have you been here already? Every video game has a map. And every map has limits. Walk far enough in any direction and eventually you hit a wall. Sometimes literal, sometimes invisible. The world just stops. Not because there's nothing beyond, but because nothing was programmed there. What if our universe has one of those? The idea of an edge to reality sounds absurd at first. The universe is supposed to be infinite, ever-expanding. But infinity is a tricky concept. And expansion implies direction. So what's it expanding into? Some scientists propose that the universe might be finite but unbounded, like the surface of a sphere. Travel far enough in one direction and you end up where you started. But what if that's just how the simulation was built? In a simulated world, resources are limited. Processing power isn't infinite. So a smart system wouldn't render everything at once. It would render what's needed, what's seen, what's observed. So maybe the farthest galaxies aren't real. Maybe deep space isn't empty, it's unrendered. Placeholders waiting for a player to look that way. And what happens if you reach the edge? What if a spacecraft pushed far enough to hit the simulation's boundary? Would it crash? Freeze? Would time break down? Or maybe you don't have to go that far. Maybe there are edges within reality, places where the programming thins. Places where people report strange phenomena. Missing time. Shifting landscapes. Sensory glitches. Maybe these aren't haunted. Maybe they're unpatched. The edge might not be a physical wall. It might be a limit of logic. A place where the system breaks down because it was never meant to be tested. And if so, what happens when enough people try? There's an eerie rule buried deep in quantum physics. Nothing exists in a fixed state until it's observed. Until then, it's probability. A cloud of what could be. This is the observer effect, and it changes everything. If the universe waits for someone to look before locking in an outcome, then consciousness doesn't just live in reality. It might create it. Or at least collapse it into form. That's not spiritual poetry. That's physics. So, who's observing? Is it you? Me? All of us? Is the universe rendering itself in real time through the lens of every conscious being? Or is there a deeper observer? One that watches us as we watch the world? Some scientists say observation doesn't require a mind. Just interaction. A photon hits an electron and boom, collapse. But others argue that without consciousness, observation is meaningless. There's no outcome until a mind experiences it. It raises a wild possibility. Maybe the universe is a stage, and consciousness is the audience. But what if the audience disappears? Would the universe freeze? Flicker out? Return to raw data waiting for someone to boot it back up? Or maybe, this is all for you. Maybe the simulation was built for a single player. Your perceptions render your version of reality. Every other person, every object, every law of physics, generated in response to your observation. That's solipsism 2.0. Not just, I think therefore I am, but I perceive therefore it is. And if you close your eyes, does the world fade to black? You die. Your body shuts down. But you don't fade to nothing. You wake up somewhere else. Not in heaven. Not in hell. But in a server room. A control panel. A white space filled with screens. And then it hits you. It was a simulation. All of it. The virtual afterlife is one of the strangest consequences of the simulation theory. If we're living in code, then death isn't destruction. It's a log-off. Or maybe a reboot. Think of video games. When a character dies, the player doesn't. They respawn. Restart. Move to another level. What if that's us? Maybe your consciousness is stored, backed up somewhere you can't access until your session ends. Maybe there's a choice when you die. Want to return? Try a harder mode? Remember this time? Or maybe you get uploaded to a new reality entirely. Something more advanced, more open, less constrained. Some researchers and futurists are already exploring this. Brain emulation. Mind uploading. Digital immortality. If we can scan a brain and simulate consciousness, who's to say it hasn't already been done to us? The religious idea of an afterlife and the digital idea of reboot aren't as far apart as they seem. Both involve continuation, transition, awakening. Maybe what we call death is just a return to the real world, the base one. And the biggest question isn't what happens when we die. It's what we'll remember when we wake up. If the universe is code, what does that make you? A process, a line in a script, or something more, something the code can't quite contain? The biggest mystery in science isn't space or time, or even the origin of the universe. It's consciousness. That flicker behind your eyes. The part of you that knows you're you. Can't be touched. Can't be measured. But it's the only thing you've ever truly known. And yet, no one knows where it comes from. Some say it's just neurons firing. Complex biology. But even if we mapped every synapse in your brain, we still wouldn't find you. The mind isn't just data. It's experience. And that's where the simulation theory hits something strange. Because in a simulated world, you'd expect everything to be programmable, predictable. But consciousness doesn't behave that way. It questions, doubts, reflects, rebels. It breaks pattern. It wonders if the pattern is real in the first place. So where does that leave us? Some think consciousness is emergent, a byproduct of complex systems. Others argue it's fundamental, the source, not the result. If that's true, maybe the simulation isn't running you. Maybe you're running it. Maybe the simulation exists to host consciousness. Like a game engine exists to run a player's actions. In this view, the universe is code, but you are the glitch in the code. The thing that doesn't fit neatly in logic or math. You aren't just a process. You're the process that knows it's a process. And if that's true, maybe waking up isn't about escaping the simulation. Maybe it's about realizing that you were never part of it to begin with. You die. Your body shuts down. But you don't fade to nothing. You wake up somewhere else. Not in heaven. Not in hell. But in a server room. A control panel. A white space filled with screens. And then it hits you. It was a simulation. All of it. The virtual afterlife is one of the strangest consequences of the simulation theory. If we're living in code, then death isn't destruction. It's a log-off. Or maybe a reboot. Think of video games. When a character dies, the player doesn't. They respawn. Restart. Move to another level. What if that's us? Maybe your consciousness is stored, backed up somewhere you can't access until your session ends. Maybe there's a choice when you die. Want to return? Try a harder mode? Remember this time? Or maybe you get uploaded to a new reality entirely. Something more advanced, more open, less constrained. Some researchers and futurists are already exploring this. Brain emulation. Mind uploading. Digital immortality. If we can scan a brain and simulate consciousness, who's to say it hasn't already been done to us? The religious idea of an afterlife and the digital idea of reboot aren't as far apart as they seem. Both involve continuation, transition, awakening. Maybe what we call death is just a return to the real world, the base one. And the biggest question isn't what happens when we die. It's what we'll remember when we wake up. So we come to the big why. If this is a simulation, why build it at all? What kind of being, what kind of system decides to generate stars, life, intelligence, suffering, joy, war, evolution, and death? One answer: research. Maybe we're data. A model. Yes. They want to see how civilizations evolve. How species survive. What consciousness does when left alone. Another: curiosity. A civilization so advanced they've already answered all the questions. Now they want to ask new ones. What happens if we tweak gravity? What happens if we give these beings free will? Or maybe it's art. A form of expression. A universe built not for purpose but for beauty, drama, tension, like a cosmic novel written by alien hands. And yes, maybe it's entertainment, a higher form of Netflix. Billions of simulated dramas playing out in parallel, each one full of love, pain, conflict, redemption. Maybe you're just someone's favorite episode. Or here's another possibility. It's school. A training ground. You're not here to win or lose or survive forever. You're here to learn, to grow, to evolve. Maybe the simulation isn't about them studying us. It's about us discovering ourselves. The truth is, we don't know why the simulation exists. We might never know. But what if that doesn't matter? What if the real question isn't why they built it, but what you choose to do with it now that you're in it? There's a moment in the Matrix. The moment everything changes. Morpheus holds out 2 pills. The blue one lets you return to comfort, to illusion. The red one? That's the hard path. The truth. No guarantees. No way back. Most people, when faced with that choice, hesitate. Because waking up, really waking up, means giving up everything familiar. It means seeing the systems around you for what they are. Questioning what you were taught. Peeling back the comforting stories society offers and staring straight into the unknown. And once you do that, there's no returning to normal. Taking the red pill isn't about a literal pill. It's a mindset. A decision to stop accepting the script. To stop mistaking routine for reality. It's refusing to believe that things are the way they are because they have to be. It doesn't mean becoming paranoid. It means becoming aware. Maybe the glitch you noticed wasn't a mistake. It was an invitation. Maybe the feeling that something's off is exactly right. Maybe truth doesn't feel good because it's not supposed to. It shakes you, wakes you. Most people will choose the blue pill, metaphorically. Not because they're weak, but because illusion is easier, familiar, predictable. But those who choose the red pill, they see differently. They ask more questions. They don't just live in the world. They press against it. And here's the thing. Once you choose truth over comfort, the world doesn't get simpler. It gets stranger, heavier, more beautiful. Because you're no longer running on default settings. You're playing the game knowing it's a game. And that's when you truly start to live. Let's say it's all true. The simulation is real. The signs were there. The glitches. The patterns. The math. You've woken up. You've taken the red pill. You see through the cracks. Now what? You still have to live. Still have to get up, talk to people, make choices, face losses, find joy. The simulation might be artificial, but the experiences feel real. The pain is real. The love is real. The wonder is real. So you embrace the paradox. That maybe nothing is real in the way we thought. And yet somehow everything still matters. You stop needing all the answers. You stop chasing the edge of the map. Not because it's unimportant, but because you're not defined by what you know. You're defined by how you choose to be, even in uncertainty. You find beauty in the not knowing. You hold space for the mystery. And that's where peace lives, not in certainty but in awareness. Maybe the simulation theory is right. Maybe it isn't. Either way, you're here, alive, aware, asking the big questions. And maybe that was the point all along. What if your memories aren't real? Not just foggy or flawed, but deliberately edited, tweaked, rewritten, like lines of code overwritten in a save file. You remember your childhood one way, but what if that version of events was implanted? Sounds like sci-fi, but we already know memory is fragile. Psychologists have shown how easily it can be distorted. A single suggestion, a leading question, or a photograph you don't remember taking can all create memories you swear are yours. Now imagine what's possible in a simulated world. If your mind is running on code, if your thoughts are data, then editing your past isn't just possible. It might be easy. A small patch. A backend update. An AI inserting a false timestamp and altering your internal narrative. You wouldn't notice, because your sense of identity is tied to your memory. Change the memory and the you that exists now adjusts automatically. Your personality, preferences, relationships, all shaped by stories you believe about your past. So when you suddenly recall an event differently, or feel nostalgic for something that never happened, or swear someone said something they didn't, what if the simulation just pushed a new memory into your file? Governments and cults have used memory manipulation for control. Rewrite the past and you control the future. In a simulation, this could happen at a much deeper level, without your consent or even awareness. But here's the kicker. What if you've edited your own memories? What if the simulation allows self-modification and at some point you chose to forget something? A trauma. A past version of yourself. Not as failure, but as protection. And now something's trying to break through. A glitch. A flashback. A dream that feels too real. So ask yourself, are your memories truly yours? Or are they just the latest version of your story, carefully patched so you'll never ask questions like this? You're thinking about someone and they call. You keep seeing the same number. A song plays with lyrics that answer the exact question on your mind. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe it's synchronicity, when events line up in ways that feel too precise, too timely, too designed. Carl Jung coined the term to describe meaningful coincidences. Events connected not by cause but by meaning. You feel it in your gut. This wasn't random. And yet there's no clear link. No cause and effect. Just a strange resonance that hits deeper than logic. Now insert simulation theory. In a world governed by code, patterns are expected. Simulated environments optimize. They recycle. If you're the main player, the system might tailor your experience, sending signals, nudges, alignments. What if synchronicity isn't mystical, but programmed? Maybe the simulation detects your emotional state and inserts a corresponding event. A perfectly timed message. A symbolic dream. A repeated image you can't ignore. Not for your amusement but to guide you, or test you. It's dynamic storytelling. Responsive world building. You feel seen because you are. But who, or what, is orchestrating it? An AI observing your arc. A deeper layer of your own consciousness. A future version of you sending breadcrumbs back through the system? And what about the synchronicities you ignore? The ones you dismiss? Do they fade? Or do they escalate, until you finally pay attention? There's a darker version of this too. What if these moments aren't messages, but manipulations? Feedback loops meant to keep you on a path. Keep you engaged. Keep you distracted. Synchronicity could be a sign of meaning. Or it could be the simulation adapting in real time, keeping the illusion seamless. So next time life winks at you, through numbers, signs, strange alignments, ask yourself, is this a random echo of a chaotic universe? Or is the code trying to say something? You move through life making choices. What to eat, who to love, where to live. You tell yourself, I chose this. But what if you didn't? What if your choices were already coded? What if the game you think you're playing is actually playing you? This is the player's paradox. The unsettling loop of agency and control in a simulated reality. Are you the controller making free decisions? Or just a character following a script, believing you have control because the program says you should? In video games, the player has freedom, but only within limits. You can wander the world but not beyond its boundaries. You can choose dialogue options but only from a menu. Your character feels free. But they're not. They're reacting to design. So, how do you know that's not you? We live with the illusion of free will. But every decision you make is shaped by your biology, your past, your culture, your emotions, your context. Variables outside your awareness. Just like a game's physics engine shaping your actions without you seeing the code. Now add the simulation layer. If reality is programmed, then even your thoughts might be part of the system. Your reactions, your instincts, your memories. You feel like you're improvising, but what if that feeling is the code? Or worse, what if you are the player, but someone else is holding the controller? A higher version of you. An entity outside the simulation. A watcher. A user. Maybe you are the avatar and the real you is asleep somewhere else, playing this life like a game. Every moment of suffering. Every triumph. Every random decision. And when you die, you wake up. Remove the headset. Choose a new character. But here's the paradox. If you're both the character and the player, where does the control actually live? Maybe it's not either/or. Maybe the point of this level is to merge the two, to awaken inside the illusion, to realize you're playing even as you move through the script. So ask yourself, are you choosing or following the choices you were built to make? And if the answer scares you, good. That means you're getting close. Picture this. You're in a video game. You turn around and the trees behind you weren't there a second ago. They were just loaded in. You only see what you're looking at because that's all the system needs to render. Now zoom out. What if our universe works the same way? This is the idea behind reality rendering. The theory that the world doesn't exist in full until you observe it. Not just in a metaphorical sense, but literally. If no one is there to see a mountain, hear a sound, or measure a particle, it isn't really there. Or it's there but in low resolution. Placeholder code. Compressed data waiting to be called into being. Sounds far-fetched, right? But quantum mechanics already flirts with this idea. The famous double-slit experiment shows that particles don't take on definite positions until they're observed. Before that, they exist in a state of probability, maybe here, maybe there. Not fixed. Not rendered. It's like the universe runs on quantum optimization. A kind of cosmic GPU that doesn't waste energy simulating what doesn't need to be seen. Just like a game only fully renders the area around the player. Your house is only detailed while you're in it. The sky only simulates light when you look up. That corner of the universe 8 billion light-years away? It's code waiting to be executed until we point a telescope at it. And what about other people? Are they always rendered at full fidelity or only when they're relevant to your simulation? If this sounds solipsistic, that's because it is. But it's also efficient. A system that renders only what's observed saves on processing power. That makes sense for a game. But for reality, changes everything. It means the universe might be subjective, not in the emotional sense but in the technical one. A reality built not to exist on its own but to be experienced. So if nothing truly exists until you look, what happens when you stop looking? What happens when you fall asleep? Or die? Does the universe pause? Reset? Unload? And if the simulation only renders what you need, who decides what's worth rendering? You step into a room. It's quiet, so you feel like you're alone. But the moment you notice a camera in the corner, something changes. Your behavior shifts. You become more deliberate, aware, conscious of being watched. You're not just being, you're performing. This is the observer effect, a psychological and quantum phenomenon that suggests the act of observing something changes it. It's not just theory, it's proven. In physics, when you measure a quantum system, say the position of an electron, you alter it. Before the measurement, the electron exists in a cloud of possibilities. After, it's fixed, locked into one outcome. The observer doesn't just see the result. They help create it. And in a simulation, that principle takes on a new dimension. If our reality is running on code and if observation triggers rendering as we explored in the last section, then awareness isn't passive, it's generative. You're not just a participant, you're a co-creator. But that power comes with weight. It means your expectations, focus, and attention might influence what becomes real. It means reality isn't static. It's dynamic and you help shape it just by being aware. Think about it. Why do synchronicities happen more when you're actively looking for them? Why does reality seem to respond when you're deeply focused or emotionally charged? Why do things feel more real when someone else witnesses them too? The observer effect suggests consciousness and the world are in constant dialogue. A feedback loop. You notice it changes. It changes, you notice. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the simulation is set up not to just observe you, but to let you learn what it means to observe. To direct attention. To create meaning. To affect outcomes simply by witnessing them. This changes how we think about influence. Not in terms of control, but in presence. What you look at matters. What you ignore fades. What you bring awareness to becomes charged, alive, real. So here's the question. If your attention helps shape the world, where are you putting it? And if you change what you observe, does that mean you can change everything? Time feels solid. You wake up. Hours pass. You get older. Events unfold in order, one thing after another. Yesterday happened. Tomorrow is coming. That's just how it works. Except, what if none of that is real? What if time as we experience it is an illusion? Not just a metaphor, not just poetic, but a glitch in the way our brains interpret reality. A useful fiction to organize events, but not a true feature of the universe. Physics already challenges our basic ideas of time. Einstein showed that time isn't universal. It stretches and compresses depending on gravity and speed. Two people traveling at different velocities can literally experience time at different rates. To one, more years pass. To the other, less. So, whose clock is right? Then you get into quantum mechanics and it gets even weirder. At the tiniest scales, time doesn't seem to behave at all. Some equations work just as well forwards as backwards. Time isn't a river. It's a directionless field. In fact, there's nothing in the laws of physics that says time must flow. That's a human perception. What if every moment, past, present, future, already exists all at once? Think of it like a film reel. Each frame is complete. Your consciousness just moves through them in a sequence. But the reel was always there. So what does that mean for us? It means the past isn't gone. It's still there, just outside your frame of awareness. It means the future isn't unknown. It's already written. Your experience of now is just a single frame your consciousness is currently aligned with. Now fold this into simulation theory. If reality is code, time might just be another variable. Something that can be accelerated, paused, rewound, or even ignored. Maybe time is local to your instance, your level, your storyline. Maybe what you think is memory is actually rendered history, data reconstructed to support your current simulation. And maybe what you think is imagination is actually a glimpse of future frames waiting to load. This would explain déjà vu, prophetic dreams. The sense that you've been here before. You have. The data was cached. So if time isn't linear, if the future and past are equally real, then who are you right now? A traveler? A node? A cursor sliding through a timeline that already exists? And more importantly, can you change your place on the reel? Can you rewind? Skip forward? Or are you stuck, playing it frame by frame? The idea sounds futuristic. Scan a human brain, map every neuron, every synapse, and upload it into a digital system. A consciousness preserved. A mind that lives beyond biology. It's called mind uploading, and some think it's coming. One day they say we'll leave our fragile bodies behind and live in data. Mortal. Transferable. Editable. But here's the real twist. What if it already happened? What if you're not going to be uploaded, because you are uploaded? Think about it. If consciousness can be simulated in a future system, then what makes you so sure your mind right now isn't already running on a server? Your memories, your emotions, your stream of thought, it all behaves like software. Self-reinforcing loops. Data recall. Pattern recognition. Your body, just an avatar. A rendered interface to let the mind interact with the environment. And when it dies, the session ends. The data, backed up, maybe even rebooted into a new system. It explains a lot. Why you sometimes feel like you're not really here. Why time feels jumpy, memory feels edited, people feel variable. Why consciousness doesn't seem to live anywhere in the brain, but moves like a signal, an interface, a login. The scary part? You don't remember the upload. Why would you? The system doesn't want you to. Just like a video game character isn't supposed to know about the PlayStation it's running on. Awareness breaks immersion. But maybe you've had flashes. Moments where reality glitched. Moments that felt like a memory, not of this life but of another state of being. Of before. It's possible those weren't dreams. They were leaks. Some scientists believe that if a mind is fully mapped and copied, the resulting consciousness wouldn't just be a clone. It would feel identical to the original. Same memories. Same voice in your head. Same sense of self. And that's the trap. How would you ever know you're the copy? You wouldn't. Unless something in the system tells you. A glitch. A strange feeling. A question you can't shake. Like this one. So here's the question that's hard to shake. Are you planning to upload your mind someday? Or are you already inside the upload? Just waiting to remember? Gamers know the term Easter egg. A hidden message. Secret room. A glitch you're meant to find. Not an accident. An intentional nudge from the creators. A wink. A signature. A moment that says, we're here. We left this for you. Now apply that to reality. What if our universe has Easter eggs too? Moments that feel too perfectly timed. Numbers that appear over and over. Symbols that follow you. Dreams that deliver specific messages. A stranger who tells you something you needed to hear, then vanishes. These aren't bugs. They feel planted. Intentional. Maybe they are. If we live in a simulation, it's likely someone, or something, put markers in the system. Messages for those who start asking questions. Not everyone sees them. Maybe not everyone's supposed to. But once you do, you can't stop seeing them. The repeated numbers. 1111, 333, 404. The odd synchronicities. The ancient symbols across cultures, matching despite having no contact. The sense that some places feel thinner, like the boundary between code and meaning is easier to pierce. Some call them signs from the universe. Others call them glitches. But maybe they're Easter eggs. Tiny artifacts left by the creators, or future players. Maybe you planted them yourself before entering the game. Clues to help you remember. Reminders that this is not all there is. Maybe that strange coincidence wasn't random. Maybe the message in that dream wasn't metaphor. Maybe that book, that song, that phrase you can't forget, wasn't put in front of you by chance. Maybe someone wanted you to find it. So why hide messages at all? Simple. Because when you're inside the simulation, direct contact breaks the illusion. But symbols? Symbols don't. They're subtle, soft, interpretable. And if you're looking, they're everywhere. So ask yourself, what's been following you lately? A number? A phrase? A song lyric? What's repeating, begging for your attention? And more importantly, this is an Easter egg. What's the message hidden inside?